Welcome, Age of Vintage Society. Inga Stevens, the Twilight Zone actress, led a secretive life. Unknown to many, behind the star's megawatt smile were dark personal problems. Stevens was one of the few actresses who was able to win fame in television and then move on to stardom in the movies. Despite her successes, she was, in her own words, very much a hard luck girl. What Inga Stevens tried to hide in contrast to the Halcyon beauty she portrayed on camera. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Inga Stevens, Wounded Butterfly. Whatever happened to Inga Stevens? I felt I was one person at home, and the minute I stepped out the door I had to be somebody else. I had a terrific insecurity and extreme shyness I covered up with coldness. One of the most riveting and radiant of blondes in the late 1950s and 60s Hollywood, Stockholm-born Inga Stevens seemed to have the whole world in her corner. Bright and breathtaking, she possessed the cool classic glamour of a Grace Kelly on screen, yet came off more approachable and inviting. Her warm smile and honey-glazed vocal tones could melt an iceberg. She was a paradoxical beauty, a study in contrasts, tender yet elusive, welcoming yet guarded, stunningly attractive yet modest, and this kept audiences intrigued. Her finest showcases came via light TV comedy The Farmer's Daughter and film drama until her unhappy personal life caught up with her. Even through her intoxicating smile and sophisticated poise, there was something that seemed to be extremely tragic in her, something that was just a bit disturbing and defied explanation. It was reported that she committed suicide in 1970, even though there are other theories. Still, she is believed to have taken her own life. There is a fascination surrounding these Ophelia-like women. Beautiful and silent, their tragic lives are remembered through a male gaze. Stevens is often spoken about in terms of her beauty and inherent sadness, but little is said about her as a person. So who was Inga Stevens, and whatever happened to her? Born Inga Stensland on October 18, 1934 in Stockholm, Stevens's childhood was a difficult one. As a child she was often ill. When she was 9, her mother abandoned the family and her father moved to the United States, leaving Inga and her sister in the custody first of the family maid and then with an aunt in Lidingö near Stockholm. At age 13 she and her father moved to Manhattan, Kansas, where she attended Manhattan High School. Inga became attracted to acting after watching her father, Per Gustav, perform the role of Ebenezer Scrooge in a local amateur production. Despite her intelligence and willpower, Inga felt frightened and lost. "I fit nowhere," she recalled. "I was awkward, shy, clumsy, ugly with freckles, and had no chance of winning a beauty contest." Feeling no love or support from her parents, 15-year-old Inga ran away from home. At 16 she worked in burlesque shows for a tidy $60 a week in Kansas City. Biding time for her next getaway, Inga participated in theatre and glee club. She graduated high school in 1952, packed her bags and left town, eventually landing in New York City to pursue an acting career. She worked as a chorus girl and in the garment district. Contrary to her poor self-image, Inga was strikingly beautiful, with natural blonde hair, fine facial features and a graceful natural manner. She partnered with advertising agent Anthony Soglio, who Americanized Inga's last name from Stensland to Stevens and got her in some TV commercials for detergents and cigarettes. Another break was being accepted into Lee Strasberg's Actors Studio. Stevens joined a class that included Paul Newman, Marlon Brando, James Dean and Robert Redford. It was here that she met her first husband, Anthony Soglio. Rolling the dice, Inga married her agent in 1955. Inga and Tony Soglio had a successful business relationship, but their marriage was a disaster from the start. He was an agent who put her under contract. Tony was very jealous and possessive, and Inga was independent. They were married in 1955, but separated after just 4 months. The divorce was finalised in 1958 and Stevens was believed never to have remarried, though speculation around her relationships remained rife and a secret marriage was discovered after her death. It was the beginning of a pattern for Inga, falling for men who were emotionally unavailable or abusive to her. When the relationship ended, Inga felt like the abandoned little girl she once was. Then she would fall in love again. The next time was with a man old enough to be her father, Bing Crosby. If you believe Hollywood lore, Inga Stevens had a habit of sleeping with her male co-stars, as Crosby, Anthony Quinn, Harry Belafonte, Dean Martin and Burt Reynolds all reportedly had affairs with her. After the relationship with Crosby, she reportedly considered suicide and eventually did attempt suicide in the late 1950s, an action she later called stupid. After a stint in a chorus line and a few stage productions, Stevens caught the attention of Hollywood and starred in her first film, Man on Fire, opposite Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby would break up with her when she refused to become a Catholic. In the meantime, the Paramount publicity train worked overtime promoting their new film star. Inga May Britt and Ingrid Gould were given a 3-page colour photo spread in Life magazine with the headline, Sumptuous Swedish Smorgasbord. Roles in major films followed, but she achieved her greatest success in the ABC television series The Farmer's Daughter with William Wyndham. Previously, Stevens appeared in episodes of Bonanza, Route 66, The Alfred Hitchcock Hour, The 11th Hour, Sam Benedict and The Twilight Zone. Following the cancellation of The Farmer's Daughter in 1966, Stevens appeared in such movies as A Guide for the Married Man with Walter Matthau, Hang 'em High with Clint Eastwood, 5-Card Stud with Dean Martin, and Madigan with Henry Fonda and Richard Widmark, all in 1968. Stevens was attempting to make a comeback on television with the detective drama series The Most Deadly Game when she died. Inga Stevens had a romantic personality, but her love is more impersonal, as she tends to be focused on her dreams instead. When not in harmony with her true nature, Inga can fall to moodiness or become aloof and withdrawn. She can also become timid, uncertain and ungrateful, putting the blame for her troubles on others or the world. She was often disappointed by the realities of life, her own shortcomings and those of others, and is relentlessly driven to improve upon it all, striving for greater accomplishments. This is Inga's life lesson, to accept the natural limitations of the world and its inhabitants in order to make it possible for her to enjoy life more fully. She is often disappointed by the realities of life, the shortcomings of others, or her own selves. Somehow Inga Stevens did not want to accept the imperfections of the world, a feeling that drives her constantly to try to improve upon it. But rather than be satisfied with her efforts and those of others, Inga relentlessly pushes on, striving for greater accomplishments. She is often unsatisfied with the results. In short, Stevens lacks the perspective that would otherwise make it possible for her to enjoy life more fully and accept its natural limitations. A key to Inga's personality is the necessity of sacrifice. Inga had to learn to let go of material possessions and relationships, the inherent lesson being that holding on too tightly to anything causes pain. On camera, Inga evoked instant sympathy. She couldn't have played the bad girl if she tried. She was too sincere and nurturing. Her early ingenues were vulnerable, troubled little butterflies, often in peril and in need of protection from the big, bad, ugly world. Her later leading ladies revealed a mature, worldly-wise resourcefulness that arose from lessons learned in the school of hard knocks. As gorgeous as Inga was, talent was her first and foremost saleable item, and she pursued with fierce determination a meaningful career not based on looks alone. Like the lovely Natalie Wood, Inga grew more beautiful and sensual with age. The fresh-faced prettiness that initially held viewers spellbound evolved into a full-grown beauty, accented by a sexy, irresistible smoulder. Thanks to a popular mid-1960s TV sitcom, the actress quickly became a household name. As a result, Inga's career seemed to be headed for new heights, and in her last film she displayed touches of Oscar worthiness in her fragile, highly moving performance. By April of 1970, Inga had added producer Aaron Spelling to her list of admirers. after co-starring in the dramatic TV movie Run Simon Run opposite Burt Reynolds, with whom she was sharing an off-screen relationship. Spelling cast the actress without pause for his newly dramatic TV series Zigzag, set to air that fall. Indeed, 35-year-old Inga Stevens seemed to be on top of her game. Yet she would become a tragic and immensely regrettable Hollywood statistic, overcome by a deep-rooted personal unhappiness, hidden by a sunny disposition and megawatt smile, a curious fascination centred on her after her death, as it became clear the real Inga was a chaotic contrast to the halcyon beauties she tended to portray on camera. The source of Inga's unhappiness can be traced back to her troubled childhood. Inga commented in a 1962 article, "The most horrifying thing for a child is to be different." Actually, she was a mystery. Things were looking very promising for Inga in mid-April of 1970. She attended the local Emmy Awards on Saturday the 18th, looking as beautiful and fashionable as ever. A day earlier, Inga and Burt Reynolds had dinner with their Run Simon Run producer Aaron Spelling and his wife Candy at La Scala restaurant. The actress was in excellent spirits and had every reason to be, as they were celebrating her signing up for Spelling's new TV series set for September, Zigzag, which was renamed The Most Deadly Game when it premiered. On the morning of April 30th, 1970, a house guest found Stevens lying face down on her kitchen floor, having overdosed on Tedrol, a combination drug of theophylline, ephedrine and phenobarbital, commonly prescribed in the treatment of breathing disorders such as asthma, emphysema and bronchitis, washed down with alcohol. The shock of Inga's untimely death was widespread, as suicide just did not seem to gel with her on-screen sense and sensibility. Unlike the opaque and artificial Monroes and Mansfields of her generation, Inga appeared genuine and far too intelligent and unpretentious to ever fall into a blurring, destructive fusion of fact and Hollywood fantasy. Anthony Quinn stated, "She had idealism and purity, and maybe she came to a sort of desperation. The great competitiveness and phony sense of accomplishment we have here can be very destructive." Inga's passionate affair with the married director Quinn wreaked havoc on her, as its end brought on an acute bout of depression. This destructive pattern continued while on loan for her fourth film, MGM's end-of-the-world drama The World, the Flesh and the Devil, starring singer Harry Belafonte in an impressive dramatic role. Inga's latest affair, this time with the married Belafonte, ran its usual torrid course, but now it was all starting to catch up with her. What followed was a near-fatal suicide attempt from which she was not expected to recover. Inga had swallowed an overdose of pills shortly after New Year's Day in 1959, but by sheer luck she was found in time after friend David Tebbutt, a senior vice president at NBC, became concerned after the actress failed to show up at a dinner engagement and then could not be reached the entire next day. Following her recovery, the actress began an intense period of self-examination with a new drive. Refocusing intently on her career, she actively returned to TV. It became a highly productive period as she starred in what would become one of the Twilight Zone's more famous episodes. In 1960's The Hitchhiker, Inga plays a young motorist travelling cross-country who is stalked and terrified by the same hitchhiker wherever she goes. Elsewhere on TV, Inga shared touching scenes with sensitive Hulk Dan Blocker on the first season of Bonanza, and went on to grace episodes of Checkmate, Route 66 and Zane Grey Theatre, as well as a second Twilight Zone. Inga herself was very candid about her dissatisfaction with the Hollywood game. "A career can't put its arms around you," she once lamented. "You end up like Grand Central Station, with people just coming and going, and there you are, left alone." While the actresses on camera movie heroines thus far were often shown suffering at the hands of a man, whether victims of fractured romances, unrequited love or physical aggression, a real-life tragedy began to unfold. It was clear her addiction to on-set affairs had become extremely destructive. Promiscuous relationships with people who, in fact, care little or nothing for you are all common among people like Inga, who suffered a lack of emotional nurturing from her parents in childhood. These affairs were especially dangerous because after the film wraps and the actors go their separate ways, Inga once again was faced with reliving all the painful feelings of the breakup of her family in childhood. It was as if the solution to her emotional problems was instead building to a deadly explosion of all the pain she had suffered as a child. She was in effect trying to put out the flames by dousing them with gasoline. Her contributions to Hollywood are so much more than the personal tragedy that befell her. A strong and consummate dramatic player, as well as a light comedian, Inga Stevens deserves to be remembered in a better and more encouraging light. Now, seemingly happy people do commit suicide, but it's worth asking questions over when it does happen, particularly since there was no way that Stevens had taken the pill overdose accidentally. You don't accidentally take 25 to 50 pills. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Inga Stevens? Inga Stevens' tragedy also proves how dangerous is that game that Hollywood plays with these stars, and that behind a glowing smile there is often a broken soul on the camera.